Years ago, Jordan Peterson, the professor and doctor, raised a controversy in Canada because he told a student that he would not be forced by any law to capitulate and use different language based on it being demanded by a law. He was referring to gendered pronouns and there being an attempt at passing legislation in Canada to allow law enforcement to make arrests based on or fine you based on your use of the wrong gendered pronoun of a person. So if you accidentally referred to someone as ma'am and they turn around and say it's sir, excuse me, it's sir, they could fine you or arrest you. And people years ago said, Jordan Peterson's blowing this out of proportion. No one's ever going to be pursued by this. This is just to encourage good public behavior within society. Cut to this just a couple years later. A father has been jailed after referring to his biologically female daughter as his daughter. So I think this may be the first time I get to show the post-millennial on the channel. So if you're not familiar with the post-millennial, it's a good publication. I'd go check it out. It's written by Ian Miles Chong, I believe, or at least headed by him. This says, a father was jailed after referring to his biologically female child as his daughter. So I'm not in Canada, but I want to make sure I get this right just in case they come across the border for me. I don't have much faith that Joe Biden will protect me here in Michigan. The warrant was issued by a judge for the arrest of a father after calling his biological female child his daughter and referring to her with pronouns she and her. He was found in contempt of court. Now imagine the nightmare that this person is living. They're in the Western civilization. They are living in a 21st century society as a man, but they have to be Canadian. They don't even get to be American. And on top of all of that, if you love your child, you're being held in contempt of court, right? He basically is thinking, if it's wrong to love my child, I don't want to be right. Because being right means dosing them beyond physical repair, and they're not old enough to make that decision. If a person's not old enough to give consent sexually, they shouldn't be old enough to make decisions for themselves, physically or sexually. That's kind of why child abuse exists as a charge, because if a parent doesn't feed their child, that's abuse. Even if the parent says, hey man, they just won't eat. They decided they're not going to eat vegetables, so I'm only going to feed them Hot Pockets from now on. That wouldn't be allowed, or shouldn't be. This says there is a man in Canada who can only be alluded to as he who shall not be named, Robert Hoagland. For the sake of natural justice, it is important to speak this man's name. He is now the Canadian state's prison of conscience. The warrant was issued, as we said earlier, by a judge for the arrest of a father after calling his biological child, who's female, his daughter, and referring to her with the pronouns she and her. Hoagland was found in contempt of court. He is a father of a gender non-conforming biological female, 14 years old, who identifies as transgender and prefers the use of male pronouns. Hoagland had repeatedly called this person his daughter. No. And so the court has forbade it. On Tuesday at 10 a.m. in Vancouver time, Hoagland surrendered himself to the court in response to the Attorney General of British Columbia's warrant for his arrest for contempt. He was arrested and jailed. The warrant was issued by Judge Tamman on March 4th of 2021. So again, you have a judge being an activist, sending out a warrant for your arrest because you refer to your female child as your daughter. And under the law, as soon as the 14-year-old says they're a boy, you as the knowing better parent have to call them a boy too. Or you'll be arrested. It says Robert Hoagland opposes his child undergoing gender affirmative medical procedures. Right, because gender affirmative is just biologically negative. Just take what they say and invert it, and then you'll hear what it is they're not telling you, right? Pretty obvious little filter to put things through. Gender affirmative medical procedures just means biologically negative medical procedures. Essentially experimentation on a 14-year-old. Has stated that this opposition again and again. The father has stated his opposition again and again in the hope of saving his child from irreversible and irreparable harm, but the Canadian medical system, the legal system, and the child's mother press on with the social and medical transition of the child. On December 14, 2020, Hoagland was compelled by Justice Mazzari's court to collude in the gender transitioning of his 14-year-old daughter and told not to call his biological female child his daughter. In response, Hoagland made a charter challenge. So I guess he's taking it to court. In other words, in Canada, they call things differently. Engaging his right to freedom of speech. But like I said at the beginning, it doesn't really exist on paper. It's only a social practice that you can say things you like to say, Robert. And it's going to be pretty tough to go to court and say that your want to say something overrides someone else's legal protections under the law. When he appeared in family court, the judge forced him to sit in the prisoner's dock, said Hoagland's lawyer, Carrie Lind, saying that he was not guilty of any crime, but the judge referred to him as the accused. Lind made an application for the judge to recuse himself based on that alone, because it's all prejudicial. And as the man tells his story, the child has complex problems. The court blames them all on gender dysphoria, but clearly kids have problems without having gender dysphoria. Those have to be blamed on something. It can't all just be your kid wanting to transition. They say Robert's marriage to the child's mother had broken up, and at that time, in grades 5 and 6, his daughter was, quote, getting into trouble and hanging out with boys, so they arranged for her to see a school counselor. In grade 7, he noticed that she cut off all of her long hair and started wearing a toupee. Any girl in 7th grade who cuts off all their hair and begins to wear toupees needs to have a talk, needs to be listened to, and really straightened out. She's not being normal. Then she developed intense crushes on 2 male teachers. Another huge giant red flag for sociopathy, right? And made a suicide attempt. Okay, there's the third one. Now you know you've got someone who's behaving like a psychopath, who has exhibited a sociopathic, psychologically disturbed symptoms. You should take them to a doctor, not one that will be medically affirmative. Hoagland discovered that the school had been showing his daughter SOGI 123, the Going, Sexual, and Gender Identity education materials in British Columbia, which amounts to transgender ideology propaganda videos. Yeah, if all you're doing is telling kids that it is normal to divert from biology because their brains tell them to do it, but it's not normal to not do that, we've got a problem because it's all backwards. They say the school counselor changed the child's name without telling the parents, and the school, quote, socially transitioned the biological female on its own initiative with the input of a gender ideologue, Dr. Wallace Wong, but not the parents. So Dr. Wally Wong, gonna make your child another sex, another gender. Not biologically, of course. He's not a real doctor, he's just a doctor for pretend. Apparently, because any pretend doctor would do this. A good doctor would say, I'm not going to abuse a child and send them off into the world with mutilated body parts at the age of 14. When Hoagland accompanied his child on the consultation with Wong, the psychologist advised that the pubescent child take testosterone. Wong referred the child to the endocrinology unit at the local hospital. Meanwhile, Robert Hoagland, the father, was looking for mental health solutions to help the child without drugs and without pushing it further. It goes on to discuss how at every step, when the father is looking for help from the medical community, they help in the form of pushing the kid further and further down the transition path, into more drugs, into surgery talk, into saying that now you've been transitioned, so there's no going back. You can't detransition. He said, here I am sitting there as a parent, watching a perfectly healthy child be destroyed, and there's nothing I can do but sit on the sideline, according to Justice Bowden. I can only affirm or get thrown in jail. And the court held that the father's consent was irrelevant. Well, why then? If it's irrelevant, then he should be able to speak out against this. If it's irrelevant and his opinion doesn't matter, then he should be able to blast it. But he's not allowed to, which is saying something. The judge went a step further, declaring that the parents must affirm the child's gender identity. And so they can't just zip it. It's not enough for the court to say the dad must be silent and not tell her she's a girl. He has to encourage the sociopathy. He has to encourage the psychopathy, the gender identity, to refer to your own child, who is your daughter, who's now 14 years old, who because of a bunch of different issues in life has snapped and has now decided she wants to be a boy. And every professional, every adult in her life that should be helping her is making her do it more, except for her dad. And so, of course, the Canadian jail throws dad in jail. Why not? Throw him away. Throw him in prison because he's the only one trying to stand up for the damn kids. So that's what I thought. Sad thing to see. Don't let it happen here in the United States. The first time you see someone being arrested or being told that they will be arrested for not being gender affirmative? Time to That's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you could, share this video, like this video, subscribe to the channel. That's the only way we can keep growing. Keep us afloat in the description links below. And if you're doing those things, you're helping me keep America afloat.